Thank you for coming. I think probably the turnout is some indication of the time of year rather than whether there's a real excitement and enthusiasm for what we're trying to do. And there may be a lot of people online, at least I hope. But we'll have an opportunity here to engage in a little more dialogue. One of the things that I've been thinking about is where do we go next? So we've had a series, basically monthly conversations about the campus and things that we want to move forward. We identified a number of major issues. And as I look to the coming year and I see some of the things that we're doing coming to fruition and others that need a little more work, I've been very definitely thinking about, and based on some input, thinking about having some conversations next fall that have separate groups for example, a student conversation, having a staff conversation, and having a faculty conversation, and perhaps going beyond the 1 hour that we have now. I don't believe this has been a good time for students' attendance. And are there some students in the audience? Do we have? Is this kind of there'd be a better time, right? Maybe kind of early evening or something like that, maybe for a couple hours that we might talk about issues. So I'm thinking that when our fall semester starts, of having a separate meeting for each of those three groups that gives us a little bit more time and then a little bit more opportunity for dialogue and back and forth. Because also the 1 hour limit here that we do, because it's the middle of the day, presents some challenges. So one of the thoughts is that we have some future conversations, and I put up just a possible list of some, I think, some potential topics, and I'd like your feedback on this. So I've been thinking about some 2-hour meetings with students, staff, and faculty that would be focused on those. And the first bullet point there is, you know, I always talk because it was a profound part of my life, and I found my passion, particularly when I went to graduate school. And for me, it was the research experience. But students here find your passion, and they don't really know what I'm talking about. So, you know, what is that? What does it mean? What are you trying to do with find your passion? And, you know, I think a conversation about that. To me, it was the kind of the transformational experiences that happened to me because I engaged in research and I was challenged. You know, I was pushed beyond my typical limits and taken out of my comfort zones. And the kinds of things that I see do that for students are things like many of the issues we're talking about in the Engaged Learning Working Group and that we talk about in Faculty Senate and so on. It's these times where you do undergraduate research, you do service learning, you engage in problem-based learning, you work on an e-portfolio, you do a capstone experience. I just had, I'll say as an aside, 2 remarkable experiences in the last 3 days looking at capstones. Did any of you get to go to Zeitgeist last night? This is the fashion show that's put on by our students who do fashion design and merchandising. And they run the whole program, soup to nuts, including getting sponsors, making the brochures, doing the videos, and then making the apparel, making sure they have the models. It's a complete, total capstone that's summative and integrative of everything that they've learned while they're here in their 4 years. And just an incredible show that we had last night. And then Friday night I was able to go to the engineering banquet and see the capstone project there. And the one team that we had was a group that's doing the Formula One racing car. And they will actually be competing in Lincoln, Nebraska this summer. If any of you really want a nice souped up car, it goes 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds and has lateral acceleration of 1.7 G, so it's higher performance than a Ferrari Spider that costs $300,000. Now I mean, they put the whole car together, including thinking about supply chain, where to get the parts, where to get the titanium bars and things. And those kind of experiences to me, internships, co-ops, study abroad, and all, that's what I mean by finding your passion. And you know, it can happen in a great interactive class. It can happen in an out of classroom. Sometimes it happens, I was interviewed this morning by some of our student journalists at Kaleo, and I think they've found that passion in their work in the newspaper. So that's kind of what I mean by find your passion. I'd really like to have an engaged meeting with the students about that, and quite frankly, also with faculty about their thoughts on that and how it relates to academic rigor. And then promoting a culture of service. So, and that's really being responsive to the needs of our students and the needs of our staff and faculty when they have an issue on campus. So with that, let me get some feedback from you on this as some of the things we might tee up for next year, early on in the year, in trying to move these forward. Yes? And we do have mics, just so, and one of the reasons I say that is anybody watching on live might need the mic to hear.
Aloha and mahalo. I believe it was last week, I was particularly impressed with a tent they had outside in front of your office, and it promoted volunteerism. I'd really like to see that expanded, because I can see the merit of that, not only it leading to internships and practical work experience, but also being able to define, you know, your passion kind of thing and identify within the community. And that leading to steps of perhaps going to graduate school or beyond the gates of academia. I'd really like to see, I think perhaps there were maybe about 20 organizations that were there, but I think that we could expand it and perhaps make that a focal point the first week of school or the second week of school. So when the students are hot and heavy in terms of having this an enriching academic experience, they can make that immediate connect, because within the high schools, they often, in order to graduate from an Hawaii high schools, you have to have that volunteer component. So if you were able to continue that transition and say, look, we know you have that basis, let's expand upon it, and that might lead to some professional experiences for you. I think we could do well if we could expand that.
That's a great idea. I couldn't agree more. And I also like your idea of doing it right away as part of the kind of the orientation. Welcome back. If you're a new student, we have these opportunities. If you're a returning student, welcome back. And you know, before the semester goes into full gear, think about some of these opportunities. I couldn't agree more. And you know, we do have service learning, in which you engage in those and you work and you integrate your academic learning that's happening in a course with that community outreach. Yeah. 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 Good. Sir.
Good morning. My name is C. Francis Chun. At this occasion, I would like to express my condolence for Wayne K. Ogino, who passed away. I was surprised to read it in the Sunday paper. His service will be this Friday. And of course, he was, for a brief time, I guess, the chief of security here at the university. Which brings me to one question. When they were investigating the burglary of the vending machines near the quarry, Wayne deduced that it must be someone who is familiar with the environment. Would you know what was the resolution of that?
I don't know that particular case, but we've had a lot of discussions very recently, and thank you for mentioning Chief Ogino and the terrible loss that we all suffered with his passing. We do have, I think, some very exciting plans for campus security going forward, including, and what's very nice about this is our campus security force is very excited about their status, increased training to peace officer status for campus police, campus security. And also expanding the number of people because they were one of the areas that got cut. So we're coupling, it's really a 4-point program. One is upgrading the skill sets of our campus security to create a campus police or peace officer group. One is hiring more people, and the other two are installing more video cameras and key card access. All of our new elevators that are put in on campus have key card access, so, but coupling that to access through stairways and access through laboratories. And the real crucial thing there is we want people to realize that we are able to see various areas, particularly high crime areas where we have materials that can be taken fairly readily and sold fairly readily. So computers, laptops, and those kind of things where you have a high concentration and they're likely to be targets of theft. We're working on that, getting video cameras. We have POs are about to go out for some of those. In many cases, we'll want signs letting people know that they're on video to inhibit. In other cases, we also, though, don't want the bad guys to know where all of our cameras are, and so there may well be cameras when people don't know. With key card access, we know who's going in when, who the card belongs to, who it was issued to, when it was used, and so on. So I don't think any of us like to have to do this. You know, I have as many privacy concerns as the next person. On the other hand, in the tragedy in Boston, we saw just how useful video is when people are not doing the right thing. I might add that we have some very nice plans for also campus safety in terms of better lighting. LED lighting is both less expensive to run and brighter, and is part of our new landscape master plan. And with, I think, the opening of the renovated student center, sorry, the new student center to campus center, that's going to create a much more vibrant campus and a much safer campus. And so I think there's a lot of pluses coming forward. A lot of these are now in the process. I was in talking to Kaleo this morning. They asked, well, when are these all going to happen? And what I want to assure you is they're going to happen in this coming year. The video cameras we're actually looking to put the POs out immediately. Some of these are going to take a little longer. The peace officer status, we do need to consult with others in the state in order to be able to do that. But I think we have some good momentum, and I think pretty good support on the campus for those. Yes, sir.
I'm Ian Belton from Theater and Dance, and on a similar sad note, I just wanted to offer condolences for Glenn Cannon, who passed away a little more than a week ago. Glenn was a teacher of acting. He was on faculty here for 43 years and 10 months, which is longer than I've been alive, and by a little bit. He kind of redefined what a warrior is. And I was very privileged to get to know him as new faculty. On that note, and then I have something very petty that I want to bring up, and I'm sorry that these things are conflated. But on this note of the 2-hour meeting, I'm finding it very difficult to, like this, in the wake of this tragedy, we're in the middle of finals and everything's really confusing and everybody's very busy and there's no coming together to really to say, you know, I don't know if we're going to have a memorial service before the end of the semester, and everybody's feeling really whack because there's no catharsis or anything like that or coming together. And I'm finding it very difficult to organize anything on a ground level within my department because the curriculum is such that it's just, it's impossible to bring everybody together. So I was thinking, like, instead of maybe 2-hour meetings with students, staff, and faculty, maybe there could be like a half-hour meeting amongst the colleges of coming together and just to check in and say stuff like this, like epic, super seismic things that are happening in the world and in our world, because I feel very siloed and isolated over there. And I'm very interested in what other people are doing on campus. So there's that. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, this is a form for a direct deposit. When you want to have a direct deposit in a bank that's not on island, right? That's not a Hawaiian bank. This is a triplicate form. It's carbon copy, and it says use typewriter only, right? And I've sent 4 copies of this. I've had to have it typed, my part of the form typed, and I've sent it in 4 times. And I call in to my bank, mainland bank, and they think I'm totally insane. Okay? That's one. I just also wanted to say, this is the sample form for how to fill it out. And the date on it, like the sample date, is 04/03 of 1990. That's the form to fill it out. So that is 24 years old. And it'd be really cool if we could maybe update this to this millennium. Yeah, it really sucks. And there are a lot of these forms, like when you go into like an incomplete, when a student doesn't finish a course, you have to fill out a triplicate form, and it totally sucks and is a big waste of my time. So that was the other thing.
All good points. And by the way, I hope that we don't think that this is the only time we can have campus conversations. So your idea of having colleges meet regularly, I think many do. Some it might be difficult sometimes, but I hope that a lot of those kinds of things happen as well. And I certainly wouldn't want this to be the only forum or this set of fora that where that happens. I do think that we have to work very hard to de-silo as much as we can. It's interesting. I had a real education on community building when I toured faculty housing, and I really saw communities built sometimes around the laundry room or some other place where people from disparate parts of the campus got together to talk. I really wish we had a club on campus, and I hope I wouldn't incur the wrath of people on campus if I suggested that perhaps in the campus center, as we continue on phases 2 and 3 of the campus center renovation, we might think about a faculty staff club that would promote people getting together for lunch. And actually, I think of some of my early imprinting when I was a young, I believe you're in your first, I think you started when I did, as I recall. When I was a brand new faculty member, I had the senior faculty imprinting on me very heavily. Here's what you do as a young chemist, in my case. And having those kind of moments where the senior faculty can kind of hold court over lunch and talk to people and have a philosopher interact with a theater professor and a chemist. And there's actually a play on chemistry, and Priestley, one of the founders of chemistry. There's those kind of weird kind of interactions that can happen when you get people together and you start thinking outside the box. And so I think we need more of that. We need more of a community here. And I really would like to see I was thinking about College Hill, but it's too far away, sort of, to do that routinely. But I think maybe something right here in the center of campus might be a good way to de-silo a little bit, get more of those conversations. I believe the Faculty Senate does a memorial each year for our departed, and we have lost some real leaders here, and that unfortunately, and we need to grieve and have those kind of catharsis after these happen as well. And right now, I'm sure all of our campus security are I know, in a difficult, and I'm sure your faculty as well. The forms from 1990, there may be people who don't know what a typewriter is, or they only know about it in history. And for direct deposit, I'll give you my bank account numbers if you'd like to. At least you don't, there's nothing about putting the money on the stagecoach or something like that. But we need to work on those things, and I'll see what I can do here at Manoa.
I'll send you a copy.
By Pony Express, just fittingly. Yes, sir.
Richard Breslin. I'm emeritus in business school. I like the idea of these conversations. Other chancellors haven't had them. Do you see the day when you'll get up and say, I've listened to FYP, I've listened to academic rigor, here's my vision of a great university and steps that it will take to get there. Please join me in trying to achieve this vision of a great state university, maybe with a couple of models, with keeping in mind some of the difficulties we have. Commuter campus, we talk about.
Yeah.
Students go home on the weekends and we don't see them like we do on TV, trying to get tickets for the Duke basketball games, sleeping overnight in Kville, which is a great experience. But
Yeah.
that's where philosophy graduate students do meet engineering graduate students. And the salary structure. The salary structure, in how many departments are we competitive?
No.
And then we would have various criteria, goals that we would have measures for. The one I'd like us to keep in mind more is how many departments their PhD students are taken seriously on the job market, given the admitted caste system in hirings.
No.
Those are some of my thoughts.
Those are great thoughts. And, when we think about who we want to be as a university and that academic vision, the real, what do we want the experience to be here for our students and our faculty? What kinds of, I think of it in terms of instilling students' passion, but of course there's so much behind that. There's the steps to get there, to me, include incentivizing faculty to want to do those kinds of things, which often take them going beyond the normal and the feeling that they're rewarded. Competition for faculty, both to get them here and to retain them, is a challenge we face every day. And it's interesting how quickly you get into issues like faculty housing and things like that contribute. So setting that grander vision, that really is my job to set that tone and create that vision and try to move it forward. We need to have these conversations among the campus leadership and administration, but also very much in the faculty senate, and having these kinds of conversations in all the committees. I think we have a good senate and good committees there, but really getting these discussions going and then coupling the two and figuring out what is it that the administration can do to foster this, to till the soil, put in the fertilizer it's going to take to make these kind of things happen. I think these are great conversations to have, and really the importance of who we are as a university. So very well spoken, and a great deal for us to do in the coming year. Yes.
Structurally, I've come to each one of these. I very much appreciate all the time and energy. I know even doing something simple takes a lot of effort. It is difficult, though, I think, for me to sit and realize that everybody really does have something they probably want to say when they show up. I mean, yes, we all love to listen, but usually you come because you're a little honked off about something.
Yep.
But nobody really feels safe yet to risk saying it, particularly in this venue. I really like the mixed crowd. I think I see why you would want to separate out by students, staff, and faculty, but I think that's part of how we've been, and that's not necessarily healthy, because I think we all need to be able to sit in the same room and talk to each other face to face. So maybe if you looked at doing something more kind of like a summit, where you could invite people ahead of time who have a vested interest in it to be willing to participate because I love to hear what other folks say, and I never have any other chance to hear that except at some place like this. But people who are willing to sit down and talk about something, whether it be specifically focused, like last time, commuter services, I mean, everybody loves to hate on them, but honestly, they did a pretty good job.
No.
I didn't have anything to say at the end of their presentation, which is interesting because I usually have some input about parking. You know, so you could be specifically about a service or about a topic where you have people that are willing to sit on a stage and talk about it more in a not necessarily a full-blown debate, but more like a summit.
Yeah.
But that would actually take some energy from us instead of just sitting here and receiving all this nice information. And I think that's what I'd really like to see us move towards. Is
Yeah. That's a great idea as well. And again, I don't think that these would be the only fora we would have. I just think there's some special topics. I'm thinking of the one we had where we had a panel on sustainability a couple months ago, and we had a quote expert panel. The reason I say quote is I was on it, so it couldn't have been too expert, but the rest of the people were experts. And we had a good discussion about a number of issues related to sustainability, and even GMOs came up, which we'll probably follow up on. I love those. Campuses should be a place for that kind of dialogue. And I do like the mixed venue as well. I do want to have some focus things so I can gear. One of the things that I did not do well this year is get the student input in this forum because we had it at noontime. And I just don't think we've had a lot of students here, and I want to rectify that. I do get to see the student leaders, student government and so on, but I'd like the whole, you know, I'd love to have 150 students here all coming armed with their, you know, what they think are the really important things. And that's not to say that this is the only forum for them as well, because there are things within the student life and so on that have happened. So, great idea though. Sir.
Hi, I'm Austin. I just graduated from master's. I graduated my undergraduate year too in marine biology, and I've never been held to a very high standard of I have straight A's, but I didn't have to work very hard. You know the phrase, the saying, you don't have to run faster than the lions, you just have to run faster than your friends. Academic rigor is important. I'd also like to hold my professors to a higher standard. That I've had some horrible professors, and there's no recourse. They teach a required class, and they do a terrible job. And I'd like to add that perhaps after the academic rigor, is faculty rigor as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your comment, and I will say it pains me to hear it because I do think whatever growth I've ever had is because somebody pushed me beyond where I ever was, and I really had to struggle. And once I struggled for something, I got a tremendous benefit from that. And if you get to coast, it's not the transformative experience that helps you find what you're passionate about. Passion takes depth and struggle, I think, in order to really find that passion. And of course, it is our faculty who are responsible for our curriculum and our academic rigor. So I take your comment to heart. It's painful, actually, to hear that you weren't.
There are some fabulous professors, but they're...
Yeah. Well, you know, we also, I think, have to think a lot about the expectations we set for faculty and the evaluation process of faculty. I've gone through my first review of promotion and tenure cases this year, and I'll say that I think we need to look very carefully at the standards that we place on our faculty in different realms and the different types of faculty that we have, and make sure that, you know, if you want this, you shouldn't reward this or this. And
for tenure, and he's unranked my professors 50%. I wrote a letter to the department and he gets tenure back. No, you don't think. Right away.
yeah, yeah. So we need to look at the evaluation of faculty and the incentives for faculty. And you know, the other thing is, as you mentioned, you don't need to outrun the lion, just the person next to you. The other thing, and one of the things I worry about when I look at some graduate programs, and I've always stressed the importance of really strong admissions criteria, and lots of early and often evaluation of graduate students too, is that I think you can get a tone in a particular department or program based upon the people in it. I mean, one of the reasons you go to Harvard is because everybody else is in the classrooms as smart as you are. And so, you know, having those very high standards, and you know, you were in a program that's, you know, we're as good as anybody in the world in, and so, yeah.
Graduated. I mean, I did my work, but no one checked it. No one has
No.
checked my work. You know, like graduation and talk to my department, they're not speaking to each other. I just graduated. I filled out one form ever the entire time I've been graduate. And now I'm done. Thank you.
So, message received, and I really do think in terms of this academic rigor and all that, having a lot of these conversations with the faculty and with our administration to make sure we're incentivizing what we need to be the university. It comes back to the vision of who we want to be, and I want to be I mean, I would much rather you saying, you know, I can't believe, I wish you were complaining about how much work you had to do to get a master's and you think it's unfair. I think it's unfair. I was working 70 hours a week on my master's degree and I was trying to put food on the table, and I think that's unfair. And then I would have said, all right, you know, good. But you know, that's part of who we want to be. I'm gonna, oh, well, actually everyone, so you, and then. I will try to get people who haven't spoken yet if you raise your hand.
Mahalo once again, and aloha. One of the reasons why we educate ourselves is ideally to be a participatory citizen. And I believe that there are things that we as a university could do to help the society at whole, an idea of thinking outside the box. There's a member on faculty, and he's in the architectural department, and he's world renowned for his discoveries on creating Fujian tulos, T-U-L-O-U, tulos. And they're rammed earth structures that can be used for the sustainability buildings, faculty dormitories, student dormitories, and the cost in comparison to the other structures is like 1/8. So I wish that we as a university could be able to assess some of the needs of the Oahu community or the Hawaii State community and do more partnerships saying, look, we've got architectural students and we can help you with this issue that you're facing here in Hawaii, and doing more partnerships. I'd like to see that being done.
And I will say that there is a lot of that going on. I'm aware of quite a bit of it. In fact, I see my dean of the law school, and I know he's in the community everywhere doing a lot of these things. But you're right, we should always look for more of those community outreach opportunities. Because we are doing a lot, but we can always do more. Agree. Sir.
Hi, again. I just want to speak to the gentleman who graduated recently. Hi, my middle name's Austin. There's some kind of like flaw in terms of faculty evaluation, and it's really weird because I got horrible evaluations in my first semester, and I also had students who couldn't write. I mean, this was one of my first conversations with you, is that I got juniors and seniors who couldn't write a 500-word essay. And this was shocking to me, and what I ended up doing was offering them rewrites, like endless rewrites. So it was a lot of work, but I was very proud of a lot of them that by the end of my class, they had really made a lot of progress. And then like, I had this thing where I go to people like the student evaluation, I don't want to name names or anything, but student evaluation people or faculty, whatever, and I say, you know, K through 12 sucks. and they're like, why are you dissing Hawaii? And I'm like, no, K through 12 sucks everywhere, you know. And I understand that we inherit a certain number of people, but then when we then new faculty come in and be like, we're not jaded, we're new, we want to educate. We push the students, they say that teacher's a jerk. We get bad student evaluations. Our professors come down and say, you're being mean to the students. You have to back off, right? And then you get tenure, and then you don't have to do anything. You know, and you have these really bad habits and this culture of stupid culture. So, I mean, I don't know what to say to that other than like, I think there needs to be more honesty and communication about where people are at. You know, that if you have a student who can't write or add, you're in the shop, at the scene shop at the theater, and they're like, you do this basic math to cut these 2x4s, and they can't do that, that you should have a place to go and say, hey, listen, this student can't add, this student can't write, and they need to take some kind of remedial something so I don't come off as a jerk, and I don't not get tenure or get fired or have to do grade inflation so that they like me.
That's you're touching on some of my pet issues actually, and in the evaluation of faculty, and particularly around their teaching, I have always found that student comments are interesting on student evaluations, but using numbers filled in on, oh, you get 4 out of 5 and so on, they often become popularity contests, and they're exactly what you don't want to use. The evaluation of faculty, I love seeing this faculty member really worked me. The best evaluative tools I've seen recently, and this is an issue I'm really a proponent of, is questions that ask more about the student experience in the course. Not do I like the faculty member, was this a good faculty member? It's how many hours a week I worked X hours a week outside of class on this course. I wrote X papers or X pages of papers. It's more about I had to give this many oral presentations. I was challenged in this course in my quantitative reasoning or critical thinking skills. Questions more about the course, not about the person. And I really think that that's the kind of student input we should get. But I'll also add that student input should not be the only thing, especially for a young faculty member. I hope that you have colleagues who are coming to your class to observe you in the classroom, that your department chair has the opportunity.
Sorry, I have to speak to that. I think that's part of the silo thing. I think I'm terrified of my colleagues. I'm terrified because they don't care. They're tenured. What do they care if I succeed or fail? I mean, why do they have to care? That's what I should say. Why do they have to care? And there should be like, rather than having to go to my dean, right, who's got a lot of things to deal with, like there should be some outside recourse that I can go to somebody outside my department, to the college, and say, these students can't write. Because if I go to my faculty, their advisor, and I say this student can't write, then they're going to be like, oh, the students don't like him, you know? I mean, it's a conundrum. It's a conundrum because I mean, all of the faculty in my department are massively talented, right? Massively. But the dialogue, it needs to be mediated because it's too siloed.
No.
That's it.
I will say I'll make one observation. By the way, when I investigate the keys to better student writing, one of the things that everyone who's an expert in that area does say is it needs to be an iterative process. So I'm glad you're giving them the opportunity to submit, get your comments, rewrite, resubmit and things, because that iterative process is a great one for learning. And then the question would be, well, how do I incentivize more faculty to do that? Because it's a lot of work. And do you have a TA to help you who's also good enough to do that and things like that? So these are all questions. One of the things that we do not have here that most universities have, and we have to talk about it in terms of how it affects us, Your initial thought is, well, I need to go to my dean. Usually, at most places, there's a department chair who's not a member of the bargaining unit, who acts as sort of the local one who, so I was a department chair for 5 years. I hired the new faculty. They were my babies. There was a huge sense of pride in hiring them, and I considered it my own personal, the most important thing I would do as a department chair was make sure they were successful. When I was hired, the guy who chaired the search committee that hired me took me under his wing. I had a huge amount of imprinting from this guy. I still write to him today and thank him, because I wouldn't be, I would not have been successful without his real guidance all the time. And he considered that something that was his job, because he was the one who chaired the search committee that hired me. And so that kind of, building that kind of community here, we've got to find a way to do that in order to be the, again, it comes back to who do we want to be as a university? That I would say that your colleagues want to have the strongest possible theater department, and they want to have great colleagues that make an intellectual environment that's stimulating and they know will be strong forever. And they're stewards of that discipline here at Manoa. And getting that feeling that we welcomed you into the campus, and now it's our job to make sure you're successful while you're here. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking in general in terms of evaluations, I think that the university could do a lot more as far as 360 evaluations. I know from the top down it's sometimes not super relevant as a staff member to get comments from my faculty when they may or may not know exactly what I do. So that also, 360 reviews would also help on the faculty level. And then speaking to the siloedness, some of the comments earlier about having specific conversations about issues or topics would be really great, because I find out what an IT department is doing in College of Education, which is really interesting and really great, but I found out about it, 6 months after I'd already been doing my website and stuff like that. So it would be so handy to know what other places are to go on campus or other resources, or I also help out with admissions. It would be great to know how other departments do admissions, like how do you evaluate applicants? Like that would be just great to know, just to have a conversation about how exactly other people do stuff on campus.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm thinking as I stand here is one thing that maybe I could do to fuel this is find some way to offer, and it shouldn't take much, a little bit of financial support, and have people send in ideas for good fora, and then try to find someone to coordinate that a forum on that particular issue, and find some way of finding a good time, a space, and maybe having a panel that would have a discussion, and then make sure there's enough time and I could feed people. If you feed people, they will come. So maybe it's finding the right time. Students live on one time scale, and then staff and faculty on another. I always naively think, well, if you have it at 5, but then there's parents who have to pick up their kids, and they have, those kind of things. And that's when students probably find it easiest, is 7, or even, actually, a lot of our students are probably up at 2 in the morning. I could probably have a full room if I had a midnight conversation with our students. So we all work on kind of different parts of the day, but I think that's a great idea to find some way of having these conversations. And actually there was a comment earlier that some people might not feel comfortable presenting at this forum, and I want to remind you that you can send stuff to me. I don't promise I'll get back to you within a couple days, and I apologize to some of you when it's lagged a little longer, but I do try to, if you send something to tadapple5@gmail.com, and we have a completely anonymous entry point on our website. If you go to my webpage, where you can send me whatever you want, and I won't even know who you are. I can't figure out who you are. So either way, I can't respond to you that way either, but at least I'm getting your input when you send that in. And I do read those, and I do look at them and try to do something about them.
Hi, my name is Brent. I'm a senior in the kinesiology department. And going back to what this guy was talking about, where like seeing students who can't write a decent paper, like this is something I've seen since I was a freshman. And I always at first I was really like put off by it. I was wondering, how did these people get into college? But then one thing that I started to think about was, like, how come the biggest thing that I saw in my peers was that they just didn't apply themselves enough. And then it seemed like they didn't realize what the standards were for a good paper. So, and when I think about it, I don't think there was ever a time when it was explicitly said what a good paper really is. Like, there are the rubrics, but most people look at the rubrics and go, I don't know what this means. Yeah. It's something that I think it would be great for the instructor to explicitly say in class, like, this is like what you need to do. And I know some instructors do this, but I've also seen some instructors who just throw the rubric at people. Yeah. And then also, one other thing that, along the lines of finding your passion, I think it would be great if the faculty shared more of their research and their own independent studies with their undergraduate students, and not just in upper division classes, but early on in lower division classes, because it wasn't until just last semester that I learned that the kinesiology department is doing research with HIV patients and making them work out, and then and that they had like the only high-speed underwater motion analysis laboratory in the entire world. Oh. And so I feel like if I had known this when I was a freshman, I would have been way more inspired to do more than what I currently have. And I think because I did end up getting very involved in campus, but it wasn't until my senior years that I did that. I feel if I had been pushed since I was a freshman, like given more incentives to do things around campus, I probably would have been able to do more. Yeah. Like just last Saturday, it was the first time I ever went to the Europe honors program project presentations, and I thought it was a great event. And I wondered why did I never go to this before? I should have, and I got emails about it, but no one explicitly told me what it was or like gave me a reason to go. Yeah. So things that I think could be good is if faculty members who are teaching an undergraduate class, if they offer some kind of little incentive, maybe some like little extra credit for doing these little things that are actually really great around campus. Yeah. These are things that I think would greatly improve the undergraduate experience. Yeah. And then might also make the faculty's job easier to teach the undergrads because now they're actually interested. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. There were some great points there. You know, I'll start with you mentioned the point about writing and the rubrics and things, and one of the reasons I feel so passionate about writing is it really is scholarship. In order to write a good paper, you have to do a thorough literature search. You have to have a thesis. You have to try to figure out how to defend that in a rational way and take your reader along a path. And that's higher order thinking, it's critical thinking, and it's engaged learning. You really have to go into depth. When, I can think back and I remember papers I wrote decades ago because they involved a lot of work. And I think most educators will also tell you that the absolute most important thing of all, ultimately it all comes down to time on task. And so how much you're asked to work in a class will often be close to linear. It may be very nonlinear, but it's correlated with how hard you had to work in the class. And laying down early on in a writing intensive course what good writing looks like. Same with oral presentations. I think is really important. I also really like your point about having our faculty. I mean, one of the great things about having a research university here, and what really separates us from the other universities in the state, is that we have very research intensive faculty. And it's a real lost opportunity if they don't bring that excitement. They're all at the forefront of their field. They know what the critical issues are in their field. They know what the real problems are and things like that. And exposing that to students is the way you get students hooked on, especially early on, where students may not know what they want to do. A lot of I assume, and I don't know if this was true in your case, when you came here, you might not have had any idea what you wanted to do. A lot of students come out of, you were, yeah. And so, the opportunity to go and explore a little bit and then really see what people are doing out in the real world, right at the cutting edge, is one of the great things that separates a research university from, for example, a good liberal arts college. And so I couldn't agree with you more. And you know, getting our best faculty in front of freshmen is an important thing that most universities don't do, but really ought to think more about doing. You know, Nobelist Richard Feynman used to teach freshman physics at Caltech. Now I'm told that in fact, at the beginning of the semester it was all students, and at the end it was all his fellow faculty and postdocs. They call that the Fineman Effect, because unfortunately he got in there and then he talked to his colleagues rather than the students. But I think having these you know, really our faculty who are right at the cutting edge actually expose their students to that, I think is really, really worthwhile. And by the way, I hope your collaboration with the honor societies went well. That's also a great idea. Yeah.
Sorry, I know I'm very mouthy. I'm sorry. It's the theater thing. Overly dramatic. I think just to sum up what he's saying is that, and I think that there's too much hierarchy. And I think really what all of these things are saying is that there needs to be more lateral movement, you know, so that it's not based on tenure, this, that, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, this, that there's more lateral, and so freshmen can get inspired by PhDs. You know, that you have access to these inspiring things across the board. For faculty, students, graduates, undergrads, even prospective students that want to get excited about coming here.
It should be this incredibly exciting menu. It's like when you go to a new restaurant, you look at the menu and you see all these great things and you can't wait to try them. And we should have that kind of excitement.
Tom, talking about lateral communication, I've been a chair. I was willing to not give a positive recommendation for post-tenure review and wrote a letter saying why I'm not satisfied with this professor. And Hawaii Hall just ignored it. They said it's just too much trouble to go after post-tenure review professors and come up with a program for them and attach money to it. So I was really shot down, and I didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
And so you've got to look at your own people in Hawaii Hall.
We have to get to a point where we realize the incredible importance of having quality faculty and motivated faculty. And if someone's not performing at what their colleagues feel is not keeping the standards of the department up and helping our students succeed, I do believe in giving them a chance after they get that feedback. But if they're not going to operate at the level we want, we have to be willing to do the tough things. You know, one of the things we need a lot of here is courage to do the things that have to be done. Even particularly, you need courage when things are difficult to do, and we've got to find that. So, and I hear you.
Hi, I received a doctorate from this university, but I also did some of my undergraduate work here. And what I recall vividly is that at the time when I entered as an undergraduate, students were given a speech. We were told which ones of us had to take remedial speech. And likewise, when we have freshman orientation here at this university, I think we no longer have a session in the library where the librarians explain what a primary source, secondary source, and some of my professors in the College of History, I have a master's in history as well as a PhD, and I really liked our history department because our history professors would require the librarians to have a session with us students to go over primary, secondary, how to do a footnote and all of that. And they worked very closely with the librarians. And I think that would really help some of our younger professors. And when I was doing my doctoral research, my professors who retired told me that some of the professors don't understand that a lot of the cream of the crop, like Punahou and our private schools, go on to the mainland, and sometimes the standards that they bring from the mainland are not, the expectation may be too high. But I also recall one of my history professors when I was a master's student, and he was tenured, and he is a highly acclaimed scholar. And when I did my paper, he had the courtesy and professionalism to rip it up in front of me and told me that I couldn't write, but that my topic was wrong. It was too difficult for me. So he took the time to give me a different topic, and then he gave me the different basic sources to look at, and that if I needed help, please come back. And that really helped me. And I think if we work together with the librarians, with our different departments, that would really be a tremendous help, because I went through the system and I learned so much from that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a great comment. And obviously, you know, that one faculty member taking that extra effort with you obviously had a profound impact on you. And those are the kinds of things, you know, it only takes one incident like that can change someone's, you know, you still remember that from obviously it wasn't too long ago, but you know, that had an impact on you, and I remember those kinds of things as well, and it only takes that one extra that can change somebody's life. And so I agree with you 100%. We should actually have information training, because the information sources and primary sources, secondary, it's so easy to get secondary sources today by just going to Google and things. So really having students understand, it really ought to be part of our orientation. And I don't know, I have to confess that when new student orientation was happening this year, I was so new, I didn't have time to see all that's done, and I don't know what we do in new student orientation, but
recall that we were required to have a library orientation too. So it's different. Our college,
yeah.
Our university has changed it. Maybe that would help professors like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mahalo. There are a lot of fantastic things that are happening here at UH Manoa, and I wanted to bring special attention to the organizing committee of the first in Hawaii regional robotics competition that happened April the 6th through the 4th through the 6th at the Stan Sheraton Center at Lower Campus. It was called Ultimate Ascent, and it had approximately 3,000 people attending, and a robotics competition that included people from Hawaii, over 36 teams, Hawaii, California, China, Taiwan, and Australia. And I was so impressed when I saw students from Hawaii with a team. A China team was having difficulty assembling their robots, and they actually sat down on the ground, on the floor, and was helping a team from another country that they didn't know that there was a language barrier. And it was just so fantastic just to see them work collaboratively. Those were experiences related to international relations and foreign policy and collaboration and understanding. I just thought it was so fantastic. And it was at the University of Hawaii Manoa campus that it happened. So I wanted to give a heartfelt aloha. There's some fantastic things that are happening at UH Manoa, and that was one of them.
No, absolutely, absolutely. We're let's do one more comment. All right, let's not do one more. Thank you for coming, and have a great Have a great summer.